1,074, the number of days since John O'Keefe was killed, left alone to die in the snow. 1,074 are the days in which his family has awaited justice. Today, Karen Read was back in court as her expert, the dog bite quack, was back to defend her opinion. Her opinion alone. Her opinion that has not been corroborated by anybody else in the world.
They don't line up. They're not even. It's backwards.
It would be an odd configuration.
Well, odd, it would be like Ripley's Believe It or Not. The dog would have to have their teeth the opposite way.
No, I could see how that could happen.
Really? Okay. There's nothing about these that are particular or specific or endemic to a dog bite, is there?
Officer John O'Keefe, who was off duty, was found dead on Fairview Road yesterday morning.
She was stabbed at least 11 times in her head, her neck, and her throat.
Who does live here? Is your place?
Yeah.
Normal kid who killed your parents.
We actually don't have like crosswalks.
Kitchen's a bloody mess. She's not breathing.
Why is the kitchen a bloody mess?
Mission to find the killer of our daughter.
4chan post is a little hard to read if you don't speak doofus.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. The 4-day party turned into something awful.
There's been a major break in the Amber Spradlin murder cover-up.
The student president of the fraternity told us that they got word from National to instruct all of their members to delete all their social media.
No jury is going to convict me.
Chris Watts.
Was he homosexual at 6? Did he make Daddy do it? Is it all his fault?
We know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
I tried my hardest to stop the bleeding.
I was a hitchhiking hooker.
Stabbed him lightly in the back just to get him off.
That she had to remember the bad times.
His father was massaging his dick.
You've never been in a fight?
No.
They cut him wide open. His whole stomach's open.
It's just the internet. Relax.
Do you know what tears look
I
like?
do not think that having an affair is a motive to murder someone.
Karen Read is 1,000% guilty.
I didn't magically get powers to remember things from the past. Do you have anything that you want to tell us?
I do not believe any jury will ever convict Eric Menendez of first-degree murder.
Falling from a moving vehicle as a pedestrian, maybe being pushed out. It can also arise from an attack.
Are you the killer?
No.
That's a cop killer right there.
He was saving body parts such as skulls.
John's dead.
His hair was scraped off his head.
And she said, Google hypothermia, Google how long it takes to die in the cold. Pressy doesn't just take out a rifle in the courtroom and shoot him.
I hit him. Oh my God.
All of a sudden I'm kidnapped and something's gonna happen to me.
Constant phone calls.
Seriously, what do you want with me? Did you ever say I hit him? I hit him. I did not. I said I hit him
It was several times.
because he's dead.
Karen, we saw you outside of my sister's.
Did you murder your wife?
No. I did not.
You couldn't leave the house without people taking pictures of us.
Hardest time alive.
Just take a lot of harassment.
Well, then go to the cops, for Christ's sake.
Did you have anything to do with the death of Jean Bonnet? That's the most difficult question I've ever been asked.
So it all started back on April of 2023 when Alan Jackson was brought in to help with the defense of Karen Read. Enter Alan Jackson, enter the conspiracy theory and all these fake experts. So Alan Jackson claimed that the marks on John O'Keefe's arm were from a dog bite. Dr. Marie Russell popped out of the woodwork during the trial last year and said, "You're right, those are dog bites, and I will testify to it." She stated that she had not read any of the reports, that she looked at the picture and decided, yep, definitely dog bites.
Do you know how many pieces of taillight were found on the ground where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
No.
Do you know the shapes and sizes of the shattered parts of the taillight that were found in that debris field where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
I've seen a picture of various pieces of taillight, yes.
And if you've seen that, you would see that there were a number of different pieces of shattered taillight, yes?
Correct.
You never actually have looked at the physical evidence, you just looked at a couple of photos.
I looked at photos, correct.
And today, attorney Hank Brennan challenged her findings. It didn't go well for this lady.
And as far as the housing for the taillight, what is that made out of?
I believe it's made out of a plastic, and there's a metal around it.
It's metal.
Yeah.
What's the shape of the metal around it?
What's the shape?
Yeah, what is it, when you're describing the metal that you saw, what does it look like?
Well, it looked like there was some curves in it.
Curves?
Yeah.
Any straight lines in it?
Yeah.
Yep. Any jagged parts of it from the breaking?
Yes.
And you never studied the angles or took measurements of any of the shattered taillight, did you?
No.
And if there's two pieces of metal or glass that are straight, could it cause a linear abrasion?
Yes.
Glass from this broken taillight could cause linear abrasions.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Karen Reed has consistently argued her innocence, saying this is a massive cover-up that involves Google searches, dog bites, a beating, and everybody on Fairview Road, the state police, the DA, and everybody else.
When you're looking for trace evidence to see if something caused an injury, you look for remnants of that evidence, don't you?
Yes.
In this case, you didn't do any study of the clothes and you didn't do any study of the actual Mr. O'Keefe's body, right?
I did not have hands-on.
Okay.
That correct.
Did you know from the criminalistics reports that shards of that broken taillight were littered in his sweater?
I did not know that.
When's the first time you learned of that?
Right now.
Right now. And so when you prepared for this case and you received materials from the defense, nobody has ever sent you, ever, the criminalistics reports that show taillight shards were in his sweater where the abrasion was. No one ever showed you that?
I don't recall seeing that at all.
Oh boy. Well, talking about being a detective and using circumstantial evidence and trace evidence, the shards of taillight got into his sweater.
They could have got into the sweater from an accident, correct.
From an impact with the taillight, yeah? Right. And when the taillight breaks and there's jagged, irregular, linear, sharp edges from that break, what do you think is going to happen to the skin when those shards impact the skin?
They could cause injury, yes.
They could cause puncture wounds, couldn't they?
Yes, they could.
They could cause scratches, couldn't they?
They could cause scratches.
Mm-hmm. And you have no studies on how abrasion looks after an impact with a taillight that is shattered. You don't have any studies or comparative analysis there, do you?
I have no studies. I just have my years of experience.
You know what wasn't found for trace evidence in that sweater? DNA of a dog.
I understand that.
You know when dogs bite, they can froth at the mouth.
Yes.
Sweat.
Probably.
Yeah, saliva.
Saliva, yes.
Right? And when they get active and aggressive, it increases the production of those viscous materials, doesn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, it's in some of those studies and reports and books you've studied all these years, isn't it? That's exactly what happens?
That they increase their production
Yes.
of saliva? No, I haven't seen that,
Okay.
but it makes sense.
And so when the dog bites a person, if they're biting through material, that saliva naturally could be embedded in the material, couldn't it?
Could be, yes.
Yeah. And something like a sweater, right? It traps liquid, doesn't it? Been out in the rain in the sweater. You don't want to wear a sweater in the rain. You'd be soaking all day, right?
That makes sense,
Yeah.
yes.
There was no dog DNA found anywhere on the holes in that sweater, was there?
No.
You understand that the crime lab took swabs of every one of those holes, right?
I don't know how many holes they took, but
Well,
yes.
Before you
multiple.
discount or allege a conspiracy about DNA taint, wouldn't you want to know what they did before you criticize them?
I know that they took swabs.
Okay. Do you know that they took swabs of every hole?
No.
People are exonerated decades after they've been wrongfully convicted based on DNA. Yes?
Yes.
DNA lasts for a long time sometimes, doesn't it?
It can.
Okay. And so you know that the DNA or the samples that were swabbed from the sweater was sent to UC Davis. You know that.
Yes.
And you know when they did the analysis, there was no dog DNA.
Right.
And you've opined that these are bites, teeth going in and out of those holes all the way up and down the arm.
Yes.
As a scientist, that there is no dog DNA in any of those swabs or holes. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Remarkable would not be the word I use.
Why is it so important to you to discount the fact that dog DNA does not exist on any of those holes? What training and experience do you have with regard to DNA evidence? Your answer, not very much. Does that still stand today?
Correct.
So you're willing to come into court and just float an idea without a good faith basis or fact? If you want to claim and allege an error to demean or discount the evidence, tell us what the error was that happened with the production, the preservation, and testing of this DNA. What was it?
I can't tell you the exact error, but there's, first of all, the decedent was in the snow for a while. So it may have washed off some of the evidence.
What evidence do you have that it washed off?
I don't have any proof, but you asked me possibilities.
No, I didn't ask you possibility. You're raising possibilities. I'm asking you what evidence, what fact do you have that DNA was degraded or taken from that sweater because he was lying in the snow? What evidence do you have?
I don't have evidence. I'm considering different possibilities.
What evidence do you have that there was something about the accumulation of this evidence, this item that was tainted?
I didn't say, or I didn't mean to say that there was a definite error in the process. I'm telling you that there could be. So that's why a negative finding is not all that remarkable.
When we're in a courtroom, you know as an expert witness and as a doctor, you can't speculate. That's not a reasonable degree of medical certainty, is it? This is coming from somebody who says they don't know very much about DNA. You're floating an idea that you have no factual basis for.
I'm talking about a specimen in general.
But we're talking about DNA here because you brought it up last hearing. You suggested that there was an irregularity at the last hearing.
There could be.
You're not suggesting in good faith, and in fact, that you believe something went wrong, are you?
No, but when will are you suggesting that, Dr. Rosen?
I'm suggesting there's a possibility that something could have gone wrong.
Oh, but you can't tell us what that was.
No, there are multiple steps.
Tell me one of the steps that went wrong. Tell me anything.
No, I can't tell you definitively that anything went wrong on a particular step. I'm telling you that there are multiple steps where error can occur. That's all.
Now you know there's a criminologist report and they swabbed all the holes, right? There is an absence of dog DNA. We agree about that, right?
That's what you tell me.
Right. And we also agree that you have no actual science, medicine, or fact to suggest that there was anything wrong whatsoever with the collection, preservation, and testing of this dog DNA.
I have no evidence. That's correct.
Okay. So what Hank Brennan exposed today was that the dog bite quack could not even say which marks on his arm were from nails versus teeth.
There's a very big difference between what teeth would have caused and what nails would have caused, isn't there?
Not necessarily. It depends on how deep the contact is between the nail or the tooth and the skin.
You expressed uncertainty whether it was teeth or whether it was nails.
Yes, things have evolved.
So things have changed.
Changed? No.
Well,
it's one of the, I said teeth or claw marks.
Well, it's not one or the other. You're supposed to testify with specificity.
It's very difficult in some sets of marks to determine what's a claw mark and what's a tooth mark.
So because you overlook certain things, your opinion you gave to the jury was not an accurate opinion.
At the trial?
Yes, at the trial.
Is this the trial?
Yes.
This is the trial. It is inaccurate. It's
Well,
either teeth or claw mark.
Well, that's not what you're saying now. Now you're saying it was teeth, not just teeth. You're saying it was canine teeth.
Yes, I believe now
Right.
that they are more likely canine teeth.
Well, you didn't say more likely. You said to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
Well,
Is it more likely or is it to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
reasonable degree of medical certainty.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What else did you miss?
I don't think I missed anything. There's another abrasion in the middle.
What's that caused by?
It could be caused by one of the incisor teeth.
There are a couple of inconsistencies in her statements that she made during the trial, during her first hearing, and during the first part of this hearing, which really called into question her credibility because she was saying that these are the incisors. She said that in a couple of different locations on the arm, but each of those, the canines are not the same distance apart.
And if a dog has healthy incisors that are not irregular, that are even, you know it's not going to have one incisor leaving a scratch and the other one's leaving no mark.
No, I disagree with that. It's very possible. Skin is very elastic. And teeth are not always the exact same height and have the exact same configuration.
Do you know anything about Chloe's incisors on the top and whether there's any irregularities or missing incisors? Do you know?
I don't know.
Would it help you to know that?
It'd be nice to know, but
when you say
I don't
nice,
need it.
when you say nice, is that a medical term of yes, it would be helpful to know that?
It could be helpful.
She was asked if she had any other peer review to her findings, to which she said no. So no other person besides Dr. Marie Russell thinks these are dog bites. Come to find out, the feds actually hired multiple experts to determine if the marks on John O'Keefe's arms were from a dog attack. And this is the first I'm hearing of it, and they determined that those were not consistent.
Did you know that the U.S. Attorney's Office employed a deputy medical examiner to look at these bites? And then he had commented that the wounds at 2 to 3 millimeters up to 7 centimeters were documented on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, and the injuries do not photographically appear to be nor are described as puncture bite wounds and thus are highly unlikely to be the result of an animal bite attack. Did you get that expert opinion from the United States Attorney's Office when they investigated this case to consider as part of peer review?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, I did not get that, but...
Did you say you did get that?
No, I did not get that.
Oh,
However,
okay.
I have a comment about that.
Please.
Not very many medical examiners have even autopsied a case of dog bites. They don't have my experience. I'm
Do
sorry.
you know if Mr. Walsh had your experience or not?
I don't know. Who
The
is it?
gentleman who gave this opinion that was employed by the federal government. Do you know if he had your experience or
What's
not?
his name?
Mr. Walsh. John Walsh.
No, I don't.
So he could have more experience for all you know.
Oh, I'm highly unlikely.
Okay, you have more experience than anybody in the country.
I think I have at least as much experience as any other possible person in the country.
Now, prosecutors didn't have their own dog bite expert. They didn't call one to the stand. So we're going to do it tonight. Joining me, a dog bite expert who has been retained in more than 1,000 cases over 3 decades.
And with no interest in disparaging the doctor, I'm just speaking about what I heard her say and what I see in the wounds that she's speaking of. I would disagree with her. Her background is in emergency medicine, and I've been up against a number of emergency medical doctors, and often they are not allowed to testify on dog bites. And medical doctors are trained to treat wounds, not to determine causation.
This dog bite expert has testified in thousands of trials. And he also agrees that this is not from a dog attack.
Did you review the opinion of Dr. Kenneth Kinsey, who said that those injuries were not caused by a canine?
Dr. who?
Kenneth Kinsey.
No.
No. If you look, I believe Mr. O'Keefe's arm were completely bent when he sustained the injuries. A lot of them match up. They're a continuation of another injury.
And I don't even know who Dr. Kinsey is.
Okay.
Is that a medical doctor?
So you don't have any peer review at all. You have nobody who's given an opinion similar to yours about this being dog bites, do you? You have no peer endorsement for any of your opinions, do you?
I didn't think I was allowed to show these pictures to anyone.
You would, if you looked at Chloe and examined Chloe, you would know whether or not there are any irregularities in Chloe's teeth, wouldn't you?
Yes, I might.
You would see it, wouldn't you?
Well, if I got close enough and...
Right. You've read in the literature the best way to compare the teeth and the mark is you actually do a mold of the dog's mouth. You know how valuable that can be in analysis, don't you?
It can be.
If you took a mold of Chloe's mouth, you would see the distance between the canines. And you could measure it, quantify it, not guess and speculate, quantify it, correct?
Okay.
When pressed on, like, where are the dog bites, where are the punctures? She said there are no punctures, there are punctate wounds, meaning nothing ever penetrated the skin.
This R would mean that the dog's mouth is backwards. The dog's mouth is backwards if it went this way.
I'm not sure I'm understanding.
These two scratches, there is no puncture, you say. You don't know what direction it's going in. There's no anchor on the bottom. But yet, your opinion is that these are dog bites.
I believe they are, yes.
Based on just simply looking at them, there's nothing about these that are particular or specific or endemic to a dog bite, is there?
If the arm only had those two abrasions, yes, it would be extremely difficult to say that those were dog.
Well, it's not difficult. There would be no objective evidence that it was a dog bite. It wouldn't just be difficult. It wouldn't be accurate. There's nothing about these that's a chest dog bite. There's no puncture. The abrasions consistent here. They're different.
There's a...
Part of your shouting objection adds to the overlay.
Hank Brennan did an excellent job of pointing out today that there is no consistency to the marks to suggest that they are from bites. The expert called out different patterns saying, oh, there's an arch of the mouth there, there's an arch of a mouth there, the incisors, yada, yada, yada. But none of those that she called out separately were the same distance apart, meaning it was either from a pack of wild animals that have different sized jaws, or she's full of... And I think we know which one it is.
Now, at trial, did you change your opinion at all about teeth or scratches?
I'm not sure.
Dog dentition is different than toenail marks.
Paw marks, yeah.
So your testimony that you offered the jury in this case was different, regards to wound 2, than the testimony you offered the court at the first part of this hearing.
The jury?
Yeah, the jury. When you testified at trial, you said it was claw marks or teeth.
Oh.
You said at the last hearing this was dentition, teeth. So the opinion has now changed.
I think for the most... Well, I'm sorry if maybe I made a mistake.
I don't think so. I think your opinion has changed. You said this was either claw marks or tooth marks. You weren't sure. There was uncertainty at trial. At the Lanigan hearing, when you were asked by Mr. Alisi, he asked you specifically if this was dentition, and you said it was.
I actually think it could be either.
Okay. Now, would you agree that is different than what you said the first time you testified at this hearing?
It sounds like it. There are no complete puncture wounds on this arm. First of all, I did not say, with all due respect, I did not say they were puncture wounds. They are punctate lesions.
Do you have any papers, any studies that show that a scratch like this, that would look like this, is a dog bite or a dog scratch based just on the appearance of these 3 scratches?
Just on the appearance? No.
She was asked if you had access to the animal and got a mold of the animal's mouth. Then you could measure and see how far apart those incisors are to see if the marks on his arm match the teeth of the dog. We now know that the Commonwealth had an expert come in and get a mold of the dog's mouth. So that is available for the defense, but they don't want it. They just want to say it's dog bites with no evidence whatsoever. When asked the question if this was an animal attack, wouldn't there be DNA in the shirt? She kind of squirmed around and said, they could have done something to the DNA. There are some questions. She's very quick to discredit any of the other evidence that doesn't support the dog bites. But there is literally nothing that supports the dog bites.
And you're saying because there's an absence on the other side that this must be the upper canines? Is that your logic?
I'm saying because it's usually the uppers that grasp first.
There's nothing in methodology or comparative study that would tell you that these are consistent with upper canines. You're just deducing that based on there's only one pattern instead of two?
There's nothing that makes it definitive, correct?
Well, not just definitive. There's no cues. There's no clues. There's nothing here that says to a person or even an expert that these are caused by canine teeth.
The methodology is that I looked at the overall pattern of the wounds on the arm.
So your testimony is, if I look at everything together, I could have an opinion. If I look at this separately, it means nothing.
If I look at it separately, I cannot be as definitive, correct?
Well, not as definitive. I'm asking you for an opinion. You don't have any evidence that this has any relation to a dog bite. Without looking at the whole arm and giving that general opinion we'll get to, you have nothing as far as facts or comparative analysis or studies that would say that this was caused by canines on a dog, do you?
It's consistent with two canine teeth. There's a distance between those parallel marks.
Did you measure the distance between where this begins or ends, because you don't know, and this begins or ends?
I would have loved to.
Couldn't you rule it out as we just spoke about? Because if this was the puncture, that means the bite is going this way. And if it's going this way, the arc is in the total opposite direction. Couldn't you rule it out just on that?
I couldn't rule it out, but it certainly makes sense that it would not, that the punctures would not be down below.
Well, does it not make sense? It makes no sense that it would go this way. It wouldn't be going up if the dog has an arc going this way. The arc would have to be this way.
It depends on the position of the victim.
A dog arc is not going to change depending on the position of a victim.
No.
And the dog's canines are not going to move depending on the position of the victim.
That's right. That is unfair. That's incorrect.
It wasn't until Mr. Alisi directed you that you started talking about dog attack and collection of wounds as a whole.
That is incorrect.
Did you testify previously that these are consistent with teeth or claw marks?
Did I testify when?
Previously.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. And do you have a different opinion today whether these are teeth or claw marks?
No.
So you think that these could either be teeth or claw marks?
I think they're more likely teeth marks.
Which one of these 5 do you think are teeth marks?
All of them. This collection right here,
yeah.
I believe this is one bite.
One bite. And so if we were to follow your theory, this was one bite, this would be the arc of the dog's mouth?
Yes, it could be.
But you see the bottom of these wounds, right? The round part that is closer to a puncture is on the bottom. Aren't they going in the wrong direction if this is the arc of the mouth?
No, I don't think that they are going in the wrong direction.
If these were dog bites, the part that's thicker, that is more similar, although not a puncture, would start at the bottom and work up, meaning the dog's head was over here on the top. You disagree with me about that?
Do I disagree?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that that's incorrect.
Oh. And if these are canines, did you measure the distance between the canines?
Again, there's no ruler. That's what you're referring to, the intercanine distance. If his arm was flexed, that distance would be shorter. I don't believe this is not a full bite. There is no significant penetration of the skin. So this is not a full bite or a complete bite.
Was that your opinion at trial, that this represented upper and lower teeth?
Yes.
And these lower teeth, what teeth were these?
What teeth?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Were they the canines?
Could be a canine, could be incisors.
Do you see the distance is different between what you said is a 4-set upper and lower canine and this one here, this canine? Do you see the obvious difference?
With all due respect, Mr. Brennan, again, the elbow moves.
Can you answer that question, please, doctor? And then we'll move on, Mr. Brennan.
I see the difference, but I understand the difference.
Okay. If these were canine wounds, they can't be claw wounds, right?
Yes.
And based on your knowledge and study and whatever you're relying on, you have no way of telling if this is canines or a claw.
Not 100%, correct?
Not even 100%. You don't have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether it's canines or claws, do you?
I believe those are canines.
Did you testify at the Lanigan hearing when Mr. Alisi was asking you questions? Did you observe any claw marks with regard to the injuries, and you said it's possible?
Possible, yes.
How can you give an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty it was canines, and in the same breath and statement say, well, it's possibly claw wounds as well?
Your Honor.
What do you think this might be?
I don't know. I'm not certain.
Well, I mean, in the totality of a dog attack, it has to be something related to a dog because we don't know that it was there before. Had to have been something. Right?
It's probably related to the dog.
You don't think this one maybe was caused by the broken shards of glass from the taillight during an alleged collision, but the other ones were from something totally different, do you?
No, because it has an orientation about it. It has some similarity of pattern.
So you think this was caused during the alleged dog attack?
Yes.
Okay. What caused this wound during the alleged dog attack?
I don't know.
What are the options? How could it have been caused during this dog attack?
By a tooth,
Okay.
or claw, most likely.
Could it have been caused by the ground?
I doubt it.
If a dog attacks an arm, it's going to create force on the arm, wouldn't it?
It depends on how much penetration. Yes, it depends.
If this was a dog attack, as you claim, that means the teeth and or the claws penetrated that sweater and caused an abrasion on Mr. O'Keefe's arm, correct?
Yes.
So there had to be an amount of force pulling on the arm to create that friction, which led to the abrasion. Yes? Okay. And so if there's a dog attack and somebody's holding a glass, right, they're not likely to continue to hold on to the glass throughout the duration of the attack and then move somewhere else with that glass.
I don't know if he was holding on to the glass during the dog attack.
Well, hypothetically, assume that the evidence is he supposedly was holding the glass. Wouldn't a dog attack rip that out of his hand? Would he drop the glass?
You know, there are many possibilities here. He could have transferred it to the other hand.
When a dog bites and tears, you see a missing tear pattern, don't you? You see the skin gets torn on many occasions?
Yes, but we don't have any of that here. We have no penetrating wounds here.
Right. Is it remarkable to you that if this was a dog bite with canines, there is no tearing of the skin? Is that remarkable to you?
No, because that dog was not able to create the force enough to penetrate the skin through that sweater.
Okay. You've seen this picture before?
Yes.
Okay. And this is allegedly is a dog bite from Chloe?
Yes.
And you see the tearing of the skin, don't you?
Yes.
And you can see the corners where the incisors would penetrate through a puncture. Yes?
I'm not sure what teeth punctured this, but yes. I see the skin is all penetrated.
Very different wound than what we looked at on Mr. O'Keefe's arm.
On
Mr. O'Keefe's arm, very different, right?
Correct.
Okay. If you had an opportunity to go safely and look at Chloe, you would be able to tell the size of Chloe's jaw. You could measure it.
Possibly, yes.
You could take a mold.
Right, a mold.
Or you could take a tape measure or a ruler and you could measure. You could do
that
both.
wouldn't be very reliable.
Nice. You could look at Chloe's paws, couldn't you?
Yes.
And so there would be a benefit to doing that. You didn't do that, though, did you? You didn't go see Chloe and take a mold of Chloe's mouth, did you?
It wasn't necessary.
Did you ever discuss going to see Chloe and doing these studies on Chloe so you could see if they were dissimilar to these abrasions?
I was asked to evaluate the wounds.
Do you know that Chloe exists, that we provided notice to you, that we went up and saw Chloe and took molds? Did you know that?
Did you know that we're going to allow? Did you know that, Doctor?
I do know that. Yes.
Well, did you know that before you testified the last date in this case that we actually went up and found Chloe and took molds and measured the paws and the teeth? Did you know that we did that?
I don't know. I don't recall.
Before you came in and testified at the last hearing, you don't recall whether you knew that Chloe was available?
I believe I knew that there was a consultant, that you hired a consultant, and I didn't know what that consultant was going to be doing.
Okay. Now that you know that Chloe's available, wouldn't those molds be helpful? Wouldn't you want to look at them and compare them to the distances on the abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
I don't think it's necessary for many reasons.
If the distance of Chloe's canines is significantly different than these abrasions in this picture, you would agree that the abrasions in Mr. O'Keefe's arm could not have been caused by Chloe. Would you agree?
No, I wouldn't agree to that statement. Again, because of the various factors such as elasticity of the skin, shrinkage. There's various factors.
So, if I understand, you have no interest in examining seeing Chloe. It's irrelevant to your opinion?
I don't think I need to see Chloe.
Well, you said earlier when I asked you about particular wounds, it would be helpful to know these things about missing teeth and spacing and distance between the canines. Is that no longer helpful to your opinion?
No, I think you're mischaracterizing what I said. I believe I said that it would give information about the condition of the teeth now, but it wouldn't give information about the condition of the teeth when that incident happened.
In the spirit of medicine and science, isn't more information good?
Generally.
Generally. But you generally would not want to go see and examine Chloe.
I don't think it's necessary, and there's so many reasons why.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Dr. Russell is a serial litigant. She has more money grab lawsuits than the average 100 people. I mean, she is just consistently looking for opportunities to extort money lawsuits. Dr. Russell said she did a differential diagnosis, meaning that she had to do some analysis to rule out other obvious causes. And when asked if she knew about the shoe being found by his body, she did not even know. Hank followed up, well, you know that when people get hit by a car that they often are knocked out of their shoes. And she says, oh, well, there's paradoxical undressing. Meaning when people are dying of hypothermia, they start to undress. And he asked her, have you ever seen a case where they just took off one shoe and then died of hypothermia? She couldn't answer. No analysis about the angle of his body of when it was potentially hit by a vehicle. She did not look carefully at the taillight fragments. She did not look at the broken taillight in detail to see if the jagged edges of the casing and the glass could have matched the wounds. You know, that would be the first thing you really want to rule out, right? Someone's knocked out of their shoe on the side of the road. But no, she wanted to say they were dog bites. She wanted her payday, and that's the bottom line. When asked if she knew that there were taillight fragments all scattered throughout his sweater, exactly where the holes were, she did not even know. She did not know that pieces of the taillight were embedded in his sweater, nor did she consider that his DNA was on the taillight. But she did a differential diagnosis to rule out that he was hit by a car? Are you kidding me? This woman should be locked up. This woman took money to go in and lie about dog bites. What a disgraceful person she is. She did not know that John O'Keefe's hair was found on the bumper. She did not consider that the holes in his sweater were swabbed and there was no dog DNA whatsoever. She did not know that Karen Reed said to the first officer that arrived, "This is all my fault, I did this." She did not know that Karen Reed said, "I hit him," to the medics. She did not know all of these details, and all of these details would be required for a differential diagnosis to rule out other possibilities. What is the most logical conclusion you would come to if you see a broken taillight with the guy's DNA on it and pieces of the taillight all throughout his sweater? and parallel marks on his arm with no repeating pattern. That is not from a dog bite, it's not from dog scratches. It is from an impact with a jagged object that does not have a uniform edge. As Hank Brennan pointed to each specific set of wounds on John O'Keefe's arm and said, what tells you this is a dog bite? She could not, even if you twist the truth and want to believe that these are dog bites, they would be coming from the opposite direction. You'd be putting your arm out like this, and the dog would be clamping down and pulling. But the marks are coming from the opposite direction. They are coming from towards the front of his body, as if the dog attacked and pulled forward. So saying that he put up his arm in defense, that can't happen, because even if you do believe that these are dog bites, you can see that the wounds start from the back and come forward, which would be the opposite direction if you were in a tug of war with a dog. What Hank Brennan proved today was that this expert has no consistency with her statement. She has zero credibility. She's calling these upper marks scratches one time, and then she's calling it bites, and then she's calling it scratches again. She has zero credibility. This woman is a fraud, and she should be fined. And she should not be allowed to testify at the trial. Karen Reed's support is dwindling. People that have supported her in the past are starting to realize that they've been fooled. There are a few fools that remain, and those fools continue to disparage the witnesses and spread lies across the internet because they're sick. They either are so dumb they can't understand anything, or they are evil and they just don't care that she's guilty and just like being on that hate train, like being in that mob mentality where they get to harass innocent people. And I think it's the latter for a lot of these people. So Josh Levy has announced his resignation, and we know that Karen Reed was communicating with Josh Levy. He was saying to delay the case, he was going to help her out. We know that Josh Levy spent $500,000 and gave partial evidence to the ARCA experts to disprove that he was hit by a car, and they still could not disprove it. We know that Josh Levy authorized the search of all of the investigators' phones and still found no evidence of a cover-up, but he found enough to ruin people's lives, to ruin people's careers, enough to muddy the waters. And that is Josh Levy's legacy. And Karen Reed has been telling people the past 2 years, the feds are coming, the feds are coming. Sorry, Karen, but the feds are leaving. Bye.